Seaweed Festival. Today we're focused on seaweed farming. My name is Jessica Gachur. I'm a PhD candidate of the Bren School of Environmental Science and Management at UC Santa Barbara, and I study impacts of ocean farming on natural resources, and I will be the moderator today. I'm really excited about the panel we have today because while I've been looking at this work from the outside as an academic, our panelists are deep on the inside of seaweed farming. From on land to open ocean farming in California. People have harvested seaweed for various uses for a very long time and continue to sort seaweeds this way, which we'll hear from a little bit later in the week. But just like humans shifted to agriculture as communities and demand grew for those resources, so too are communities turning to more aquatic farming or aquaculture as demand for aquatic products, particularly seaweeds, continues to grow. So with us today, we have 4 farmers working along the California coast who are excited to share their experiences in seaweed farming and seaweeds and their products with us. Some notes on format today. I'm going to introduce each of our speakers one at a time. And after each introduction, the panelists will give a short introduction about their work, their farms, and seaweed products. And then we will open up to questions after. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce our first panelist, who is Dr. Michael Graham, who is a professor and phycologist at San Jose State University's Moss Landing Marine Labs, where his research focuses on seaweed biology and ecology. He is also the co-founder and president of Monterey Bay Seaweeds, which is dedicated to bringing delicious sea products to local chefs using the most responsible and sustainable farming techniques available. Together with his wife, a restaurateur, Monterey Bay Seaweeds is truly a family affair, bringing seaweed products to California menus. So go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, Jessica. Great to be able to talk to everyone today. It's really fun to be here. This is awesome. So I want to thank all of the organizers for finally getting this done after, man, hundreds of years of studying seaweeds in California. We finally have a seaweed festival. So this is really neat. As Jessica was saying, you know, we're here at Moss Landing. I'm a kelp forest ecologist. I'm classically trained to study kelp forests from an ecological or evolutionary perspective. And somewhere along the road, I made a drive up to my friend Louis Drool up on the west coast of British Columbia, Port Desire, and got to see his amazing farm that he has up there. And I just thought, you know, kelp ecology is great, but one day I just want to do this. And it took me meeting an amazing woman who was working within restaurants to say that some of the stuff we were doing for science might actually yield some interesting products for people. And with her expertise in the kitchen, we kind of did this the back end. We talked to the chefs first and figured out what they wanted and thought maybe we could try to do this. So we're here on land. I'm out here at Moss Landing Marine Labs. Our company, Monterey Bay Seaweeds, is actually got an equity partnership with San Jose State University. So they part own our company. And we're here with a couple of other companies. Monterey Abalone Company is out here at our site as well. And we've got lots of projects going at what's basically a little research park. But we're entirely land-based. So we pump water in off of the oceans. It sits at about 75 feet in Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. So well below you know, the mixed layer here. And so we get really nice, clean water that comes through. And we've got a system where we bubble it through some tanks on land and use natural sunlight and the natural fertilizer in those tanks and tumble culture a variety of species that we sell fresh, raw, and alive. We don't do any processing. And, you know, we decided to do that really early on because I've got lots of friends in this industry. Many are watching now, three of which are with me today on this panel. And we always thought, you know, we didn't want to compete. We wanted to add products that would complement what foragers are doing and what offshore farms are doing. So we try to farm the species that aren't easy to do offshore or aren't easy to get foraging. And in do so, kind of raise the entire product list that's available for seaweeds in California. And in fact, today we were really lucky to announce that we were able to put out a baby bull kelp today, juvenile bull kelp. We're calling them baby bulls, and that was released this afternoon. So we're just really excited to constantly innovate and bring phycological expertise to tanks and see what we can grow, and then walk in the back door of a Michelin star restaurant wearing flip-flops with a bag of seaweed and see what the chef wants to do. And it's been really exciting. Jessica was really sweet. She didn't tell you I have 8 children. So we used to joke that we're a small family farm. We're actually a big family farm. We're a big family farm. And it's really cool. My 3 oldest kids, this is their first job ever. Our oldest is now 21, and our second is a senior in college. And this was their job. They were the first future seaweed farmers of America. And it's just fun, right? And being able to talk to chefs about your product and have some scientific background and give a chef in Chicago the experience of smelling and tasting seaweed as if it was fresh off the rocks. It's just a really cool thing to do. So I'm really excited to talk with the rest of the panelists today. I was very impressed how complementary our perspectives are, given that I know what everyone's doing. And I think the audience today is going to get a really well-rounded view of what's going on in the state of California. And it's a really exciting time. Even though the election is over with and everything's been nice and open in terms of having that behind us, there's a lot going on in California with seaweed farming, offshore, on land, in policy, et cetera, right now. So this is the perfect time to be having this kind of a festival. And I'm really excited that farming is going to lead us off.
Great. Thanks so much, Mike. Our next panelist is Leslie Booher, who is a co-founder of Sunken Seaweeds out of San Diego, which has been active for 3 years in the seaweed farming world. Sunken Seaweeds takes an ecological approach to cultivating seaweed. And in 2017, they were awarded a partnership with the Port of San Diego through the Blue Economy Incubator, with the goal of helping inform the future of seaweed aquaculture in the San Diego Bay. Leslie will be sharing a bit about this work in collaboration with San Diego State University, investigating the potential for seaweed to improve the waterway through bioremediation, and is calling us today from her farm out in the Bay. Leslie, if you want to take it away.
Hi, yeah, thanks for joining. I'm actually gonna attempt to flip this way and then flip this way so that my partner, Tori, can film me. Can you guys see me okay?
Yeah, great.
Okay, thank you. Cool, thanks. So hi, thank you, Jessica, for introducing and for moderating today on day 1 of this really rad, much needed, long overdue, like Mike said, Seaweed Festival. I don't really have a presentation prepared, but I wanted to give you guys a little visual of where we are. We're at the bottom of California, for those of you joining from elsewhere, San Diego. And right now we're at our pilot research farm in the San Diego Bay. And really we're in kind of the middle of San Diego Bay. Right behind me back here is our little 1/4 acre farm site. It's about 25 feet deep. Right now we're at an extremely low tide, so maybe we have 18 feet of depth. But out here is where we do really all of our different tests of kind of what local seaweeds we can grow. And in San Diego Bay, there are lots of challenges. It has a lot of different dynamics than out in the open ocean or in controlled tank settings like what Mike does. So I'm going to give you kind of a panorama of where we are, and I'll try to go slow. I don't want to make anyone nauseous, but so we're on this old kind of decommissioned pier that's adjacent to our farm. It's actually really helpful for us, and I'm standing on top of it. Right behind me is like kind of shoreside, and then just over here we have downtown San Diego, 1.3 million people live here. So it's very, very dense population and beautiful skyline, golden hour. It's really exciting. And then right over here, we have, local cruise ships, Hornblower and whatnot. And then we also, when there's not a raging pandemic, we have, Carnival cruise lines and all kinds of huge cruise ships coming right into port right here. And then just beyond that, in the back bay, the South Bay, we have like shipbuilding sites, all kinds of industry back there, and then huge military presence. So we've got Navy, Marines, whatnot, all over there. And then we have a few hundred neighbors all living on their sailboats, pretty much right up against our farm, US Coast Guard, and then San Diego Airport, and then back at our farm site. So I just wanted to paint the picture that we're in like a super urban area. And so we're doing this really amazing concept of urban seaweed farming. And so I'm gonna walk over to one of our, show you the species that we're growing. We're doing specifically all of our seaweed farming right now in these like modular baskets. And if these look familiar to anyone in the aquaculture world, they're oyster baskets. And we're using them right now in like kind of a modular structure. So picture like 100 or so of these baskets at varying depths in our little farm site. And the seaweed that we're growing is really gorgeous, bright electric green, sea lettuce, Ovalactuca, and we grow that in these baskets. We fill them about halfway full. And the whole purpose of this is to basically look at the ecosystem services that are provided by growing this really amazing, phenomenal seaweed, which I hope to answer lots more questions about, in the San Diego Bay. And what Olba is really good at is sucking up nitrogen, phosphorus, and CO2 at a really quick rate and really growing very quickly, like doubling in a week or less under ideal conditions. So we partner with the Port of San Diego. They've really funded this whole thing and facilitated this crazy kind of seaweed farming idea. And San Diego State, which our marine lab is just a couple miles that way. We work with Matt Edwards and the Kelp Ecology Lab to really try to quantify all of the ecosystem services provided by seaweed farming. So you'll hear a lot about seaweed farming for a specific product, food, feed, all over the map. But really what we're interested at this site is farming seaweed for the services that it provides the local environment. And then kind of icing on the cake for that is if we can take all of this biomass after it's sequestered, lots of excess nitrogen, maybe some other like phosphorus, CO2, other things in the water, if we can turn that into a fertilizer or a compost medium or biochar even. So there's lots of really cool products you can make with it too, aside from that. But I'm really happy to be here. Thanks everyone for being here on day one. And I look forward to hearing about everyone else's stuff.
Great, thanks so much, Leslie. Really exciting stuff going on down there. So our next panelist introduction is for Javier Infante, who is an aquaculture engineer with Ocean Rainforest and has more than 15 years of expertise organizing, participating, and managing marine and environmental projects. His work includes surveying marine fauna and flora, conducting impact assessments of inshore and coastal areas. Recently, Javier has taken the lead on projects related to seaweed culture for biofuels and phycocolloids, and maybe he can tell us what that means, as well as socially oriented technology transfer projects. In addition to his work with Ocean Rainforest, Javier provides seaweed culture consultancy for private and public entities around the world as well.
All right, thank you very much, Jessica. Thank you all the organizing committee for inviting me to this festival. As Mike said, I mean, it's really amazing to have something like this at these times. I believe I've been waiting for very long for seaweeds to be the thing, and I realized that now the time is coming, and we are seeing it all over the news, all over the place. Everybody's talking about seaweed, and that's really, really exciting. And having a festival like this is just another demonstration of what's going on. So I'm very happy to be here and to have the possibility of sharing with you. Well, as Jessica introduced me, I'm aquaculture engineer. I've been related to the ocean my whole life. The truth is, I started very, very young with my dad, learning to dive and to harvest shellfish from the shore, and taking this love for the ocean and for all things ocean. So it was kind of natural for me to develop interest in a career that was related to the ocean and would have me living close to the ocean. So things went well, and I found that career. It's aquaculture engineering. It's really a mixture of biology and engineering that fit me very well. I'm really happy with the knowledge that I acquired in that, which gave me the possibility, as you said, Jessica, in this last 12, 15 years to approach or get closer to seaweeds. I did have initial approaches to seaweed during university. I was assistant professor doing some small courses on seaweed and found that small piece of love to it. But it was not until, I don't know, a decade ago when I had the possibility of participating in a very, very nice and big seaweed aquaculture project here in Chile, my hometown. To develop cultivation systems for big scale seaweed aquaculture, basically with the aim of generating biomass to produce ultimately biofuels, knowing that in the way to produce biofuels that it's a really long shot. It needs a huge industry development. So many other products arise in the way. So been learning a lot since then, and when that project ended, I started doing consultancy related to seaweed aquaculture, which is was not very common at that stage. Nowadays, you have more people interested and a lot of other people doing this type of work. But well, I was fortunate to receive an invitation to participate in a project in California a couple of years ago, an ARPA-E project, a Mariner project, to develop again something really similar to what I did in the past. Try to understand the technical and economical feasibility of growing seaweeds at large scale. We did a phase 1 techno-economic assessment, just paperwork, out of our brains, just writing on paper and doing some drawings. And we were down selected to this new phase 2 of the project, in which now we have the opportunity to try to demonstrate that our calculations were correct, or hopefully were correct. And we are going to be growing seaweed in Santa Barbara. We have made a couple of very good friends from 2 other local entrepreneurs and aquaculturists with Santa Barbara Mariculture and the Culture Abalone. And with them, we're going to have a hatchery facility in Doug Bush Culture Abalone facility. And we're going to do some trials in the ocean with Bernard Freeman at the Santa Barbara Mariculture. At the same time, we're also applying for a permit for federal water permit for a couple of years to demonstrate this project. Go and see if we are able to grow seaweed in offshore waters. And we're going to do some very fun experiments down there to see what are the main risks, what are the main drivers, and how difficult it is, and if it is feasible or not to grow seaweeds in a scale in Santa Barbara. So I'm very happy and actually going to be there tomorrow. Now I'm in Chile, but tomorrow I'm going to be enjoying of the ocean in Santa Barbara. So really happy about that. Sorry I couldn't make it today to be at the Seaweed Festival. Closer.
No worries. Safe travels. Thanks so much, Javier.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
We have a couple questions coming up about that whole process. So excited to get back to that conversation. So finally, last but definitely not least, we have our last panelist is Karen Gray, who is a marine ecologist and ocean policy expert, passionate about seaweed farming. She worked with GreenWave as their California reef manager and is building a network of new regenerative ocean farmers and supported the Humboldt State University to launch the first commercially licensed open water seaweed farm in California. Karen loves open ocean diving and swimming and is dedicated to fighting climate change and improving ocean health through regenerative farming. And I believe Karen's introduction is going to start with a clip and then maybe she'll have some words.
It'll take just a second to get that clip rolling. So Karen, go ahead and start talking and then we'll have the clip rolling.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Karen Gray. Thanks for the introduction, Jessica. And yeah, I'm pleased to be showing a super video that was put together by the HSUs. Thank you for sharing that with everybody. I figured pictures, as Leslie is showing us her farm. If you're ready to go, I'll let you take over. Pictures speak louder than words.
Okay, there we go.
Although seaweed farming is not new, this is going to be the first time here in California that somebody is doing red seaweed in a commercial scale in open waters. My name is Rafael Cuevas Uribe, and I teach classes related to aquaculture, ichthyology, mariculture, fish diseases, and other classes. We are working in a collaborative project with GreenWave.
GreenWave is a non-profit ocean farmer training organization based on the East Coast. I'm working with HSU, where students can do the research and prove that seaweed farms are really beneficial to the environment. They're low impact. They don't require any water or fertilizer or feed. You've got natural sunlight that allow them to grow, and they create habitat and provide food, feed, fertilizer. There's all sorts of uses for seaweed. What's really important and exciting about this is that it is a pilot, not only for kicking off industry in Humboldt Bay, but we also want to set an example for the rest of California to be able to follow.
We are going to be growing a red seaweed known as dulse, Palmaria mollis. This is a native species found in the bay. First, you need to grow seaweed. In our case, we are using the Marine Lab in Trinidad. Our long line system consists of two 100-pound anchors. Then we have a buoy, and then we are going to have our main line. In each 2 meters of that line, we have a dropper, and then the other anchored.
One of the main goals of this project is to show the economic benefits. Here in Humboldt Bay, where we have the greatest number of shellfish growers in the state of California, there's a potential for a new seaweed industry to also come here. And what's super cool is that now we actually have a farm in the water for real. I can touch the seaweed, we have lines and anchors. Now all it has to do is grow. That's right. Thanks. Yeah, as I said, great video. Appreciate being able to show that and share that with you because it really gives you an idea of what the seaweed farming is all about. So thank you for inviting me to be here today and celebrating California seaweed with everyone. And as Mike said, we're here to have some fun. So as I said, I'm Karen Gray. 20 years ago, I was lucky enough to be diving for a living, and I discovered seaweeds in the remote Pacific. I went on to study marine conservation, and then I learned to swim in a sea of regulation and policy applied to the marine world, which has really helped me to support seaweed farming in California. In my role as GreenWave's California Reef Manager,
my goal is to support new ocean farmers in the state looking to start up seaweed farms here on the West Coast. As mentioned, GreenWave is a nonprofit, and their main focus is on providing farmer training and support for this idea of regenerative ocean farms in the era of climate change we're all living in. And although they're based on the East Coast, GreenWave has programs and has partners all over the country, including California, and we're looking to create that blue-green economy so we can all have jobs and make a living on our living planet. So regenerative ocean farming, the idea is that we grow crops that breathe life back into the ocean. As Leslie was showing you, it's a polyculture system that doesn't require any inputs of water, feed, or fertilizer. And farms can be deployed for a number of uses, as Mike was sharing about his baby bull kelps, kelp forest reforestation, ocean ecosystem restoration, as well as blue carbon capture. Leslie was talking to us about ecosystem services. And commercial operations, as I've said, can provide those blue-green jobs and create products such as the food, fertilizer, pharmaceuticals, animal feed, biofuel that Javier was mentioning, bioplastics, and a whole lot more. In California, seaweed farming is an emerging industry, so you're probably getting the sense of that, with the current demand for seaweed products being met by seaweed harvesting and land-based operations such as Mike's. And the lease and permitting pathways in our state, are a challenge, but they vary widely across the country. Every state has a different perspective. And as some of you may already discovered, it can definitely be overwhelming for a new ocean farmer looking to navigate through the business of permitting and leasing in California. GreenWave receives thousands of requests for farmer training and is transforming programming into a new online training platform that is set to release to be widely available coming in the spring of 2021. So as you saw in the video, this year we supported Humboldt State University with launching California's first commercially licensed seaweed farm in Humboldt Bay. Like Leslie's, it is a small site, less than 1 acre size right now. And as you saw in the video, we're actually growing dulse, which is a little bit different. Typically, seaweed farms across the world are growing sugar kelp, and you'll see nori, but that's just the way the permit's written at the moment. The kelp permit as we speak. But the farm is leading the way. We're looking to be a model for the industry to follow. And again, existing shellfish farmers can expand and have another crop to grow. And more importantly, students are actually able to have a training ground where they can learn about seaweed farming. So GreenWave's really excited about expanding work on the West Coast, from the east to the west. And we invite you to keep in touch. You can check out the website, join the mailing list to keep up to date with the latest news. And again, thanks for inviting me to join in the California Seaweed Festival today. I'm based in the Bay Area, and as Jessica says, you'll often find me swimming in the bay, and no, I don't wear a wetsuit. Looking forward to your questions. Thanks very much.
Sure. That's my first response. Great, thanks so much, Karen. That might actually be a good transition to our questions, which are quickly rolling in. Our first one is actually related to what you were just speaking to of getting a farm out there. And it'll be great to hear from maybe all of our panelists, since all of your experience in farms are in different places in relation to the ocean. But the question is, what are the top 3 considerations when choosing a site or applying for tenure for a seaweed farm? The person asking the question is actually from the Pacific Northwest area in Canada, which would obviously have some differences, but kind of generally be able to speak to that. Anybody can jump out first.
Well, location, I'll say right off the bat, is you have to think about where your site is going to be. And I mean that they say in business, location, location, location. But for example, if you're talking about a seaweed farm offshore, how far offshore is it going to be? Are you going to be able to access it? California has, well, the Pacific Northwest, just like all the way up to Canada. We have some challenging ocean conditions. So are you going to be able to get out to your farm? I think light and nutrients would be something else I would think about, but I'll invite my fellow panelists to chip in.
I was going to go ahead.
Okay.
Javier, you go.
All right, thank you. I agree with Karen. Location. If you're looking for growing out in the ocean, not on land, site selection, what it's called, is the number one thing that you need to do. Depending on the species that you have selected, you will need a certain characteristics of the site in terms of environmental variables, mainly. So choosing the right site, it's very related to what species are you going to be growing. That's from the biological point of view. But of course, from the economical point of view, several other considerations come to the table. As Karen was saying, the distance from port, it's a very important one. And one of the things that you will find when trying to search for a site is that the ocean is a precious thing that everybody wants a piece of it. So you will have to not fight, but you'll have to deal with many other stakeholders that are interested or have interest in the ocean space. Nowadays, I mean, normally, the closer you are to the shore, the cheapest would be operationally for you. But that same happens with every other ocean industry. So you're going to be competing all the time. Social licensing. People that don't want to have things in their backyard. How to convince others that what you're doing is a good thing and won't mess up what others have and stuff like that. So yeah, in general terms, my view is that the biological considerations need to go first, because you cannot grow any seaweed in a place that does not have the characteristics that the seaweed needs. And then the social and regulatory constraints add to the table together with the economical ones. So that's my view.
I'd like to add to that. I was going to add another word: opportunity. I started this farm with my wife and partner in 2012. And so for the last 8 years, it's been really difficult to get seaweed farming in the state of California. So if you look over to Karen, she's partnering with Humboldt State. If you look down to Leslie and Tori, they're partnering with the Port of San Diego. If you look over to Javier and Ocean Rainforest, they're partnering with Santa Barbara Mariculture. And we here at Monterey Bay Seaweeds are partnering with Moss Landing Marine Labs. None of us are launching brand new farms out in uncharted waters, in aquaculture opportunity areas, or anything else which we'd love to see in the next months to years. It's so much easier to get, until recently, a kelp harvesting permit for any plot anywhere in the state of California than it is to place a farm. So if you're thinking now and what can I do in the next few years, you obviously need to think about location, but you need to take advantage of opportunities when they arise. And so looking at the Port of San Diego, looking at opportunities in the Los Angeles region, the potential for the Ventura Shellfish Gardens, if we get those going, those would be opportunities, I think, for young entrepreneurs or old entrepreneurs to get involved. Charging through and trying to get a brand new farm in the perfect place to grow kelp in California is going to be a more difficult challenge.
Great, thanks. I think a good follow-up to that question is someone posted that I've heard that California is pretty strict when it comes to permitting. How long does it take for a new farmer to establish a farm? And do you anticipate this process will become easier? Maybe mostly we might have heard a little bit addressing that first question, but do we think that this might become easier? Fingers crossed.
Karen, you're the one.
No, I know, but Leslie wants to say something.
Oh.
If she can.
Yeah, sorry, I'm unmuted now. Yeah, I can speak to that. Definitely permitting, when we first looked into this, we looked into it aside from our relationship with the Port of San Diego, just two people that wanted to do seaweed farming in California. And like pretty much everyone that we asked was suggesting that it would be several years of permitting process and all of the steps, and then several hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so really it would have been a non-starter for us if we didn't have this connection with the San Diego port, and if we didn't reach out to them and pursue their incubator. You know, they're actively trying to facilitate aquaculture and blue technology innovation because they know that it's such a non-starter for people in this new industry. And with the Port of San Diego, you know, Coastal Commission, other agencies kind of like yield to Port of San Diego because they've already gone through the large work of pre-permitting sites and getting management under their control. So we're not having to go through all of these huge entities. So that definitely streamlined things for us and got us in the water in a scale of months rather than years. So there's definitely benefit in pursuing your local ports and seeing what they have in play there.
Great, that's super helpful. Okay, enough on that boring stuff. Really important though, right? So the next question is more related to your products. It's asked, to what extent are chefs already open to the idea of incorporating seaweeds into their menus? Do you engage in much education or outreach with the chefs on the seaweed culinary potential? Anybody that kind of works with seaweed in foods?
I can talk a little bit about that. Exciting times for chefs in seaweed. I've got probably two comments. One is you've got programs, especially on the West Coast here, Aquarium of the Pacific and Monterey Bay Aquarium. They have programs that get chefs involved in sustainable aquaculture, period, whether it be seaweed or not. And there's a lot of educational programs associated with that and workshops. They have a blue ribbon panel that brings, you know, chefs that have drank the Kool-Aid and they're ready to go, and they take all the information across the US. So there are some really important programs. In addition to that, it's actually really hard. When I started, I had one restaurant in 2015 that we sold to originally, and they found me. When I show up at a restaurant with seaweed, most of them expect me to open a bag full of blanched wakame, dried nori sheets, or dried kombu in a bag, and they already know what to do with it, but it's the status quo. And so when I hand them a bag of fresh nori, they hand it right back to me because they have no idea what it's for. It really takes a chef on my end when we're handling them something unique to them, which is a fresh product that's actually alive. You have to come in with a story. You have to come in with some anecdotes. You have to come in a way. Chefs want to be creative. They love their ingredients. Certain chefs really love the farm to table perspective. And when you're working with seaweeds, you have to have the information to back it up. They want to know what water is it grown in. They want to know why you can't say organic in California. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things they need to know so that they can convey it to their customers through a menu and it's a lot easier to just go get microgreens or to go get, you know, purple carrots and put those on the menu because it's just easier to convey. So it's really a challenge. And I think I'm just going to put a plug out there. I think the rise of foragers, seaweed foraging companies in the state of California has done us a service by getting fresh seaweed and dried seaweed as well out to a lot of local restaurants. And it's a grassroots communication. It's very exciting. It trickles up, just thank you everyone. It trickles up to people like us as well. But I think it just some time, but getting past all the seaweed I need to eat. You know, when people say, my kids love the seaweed, well, they're so used to getting the little packets at Costco that taste like buffalo wings, right? You know, and which is great. I love it. But that's not all the seaweed that California offers.
Great, thanks. So the next question is for Leslie specifically. Do neighboring industries to your farm, like boating activities, affect the health of the farm or the products at all? And there is a similar one that asked more specifically about accumulation of pollutants being in that bay.
Yeah, cool. Yes to both. Yeah, so there are definitely, nuanced things that we have to deal with on a regular basis with neighbors, gear coming into our farm site, and trash coming into the farm site, like boats driving over it, things like that, that we just get kind of used to. Everything is as such that it's not a big deal if someone comes into the farm or anything, it's marked off and all of that. But definitely it's tricky to have so many neighbors and stakeholders or what have you, but mostly because of the second question, with anthropogenic inputs, combustion of fuels. We're right next to a storm drain that, Little Italy and all of downtown stormwater can run into. So we have an interesting mix of pollutants there. Oil spills from pleasure craft and other things. Shipbuilding industry, there are lots of legacy pollutants in San Diego Bay that seaweed is really great at picking up, and particularly ours, Ulva, because of its kind of diffuse growth and its rapid growth, and its high threshold for pollutants of all varieties. It is a really great indicator. You can use it as kind of a sentinel or a gateway kind of thing of how much pollutant is in the water column, or the sediment, really. And so what we're finding with ours, because we're partnered with SDSU and they have this amazing analytical ecology department, we can look at heavy metals that the seaweed is sequestering, different signatures of PCBs and things like that. So yes, it does affect the seaweed when you're in a super urban area, but that is why we're doing this farm, is to see if there's any sort of actual remediation that it can do. And if that's the case, then this stewardship farming for the next decade could be a really huge benefit to San Diego, and pave the way maybe for some food aquaculture right down the road, in our lifetime, so.
Great, thanks so much. We have another question about, probably if we can get some input from everybody. What are the greatest local pros and cons when comparing seaweed farming in Southern versus Central versus Northern California? Did anybody do some shopping and select their site based on
Well,
the environment?
I'll speak to that because I've looked across the country, and although I'm focused in California, I've looked at other states. But I mean, again, it goes back to the location and the site selection that Javier was speaking to, and Mike's comment about opportunity and partnership, that every site is going to be different and have different opportunities and challenges. So Southern California, the siting, it may be a lot more of intense use. You've got recreational fisheries, commercial fisheries, you've got shipping, you've got a lot of different industries fighting for space in a smaller area. You have different species because the water is a little bit warmer. Central California, all the way up to Northern California, you're going to have different factors at play. I mean, on the North Coast, personally, I think it's pretty rough. And the Southern California bight is a lot more protected. There has been a great study to show the aquaculture opportunities in that area, that I think is going to lead to more industry kicking off down there. But there are different projects, again, speaking to Mike's doing the kelp restoration, where maybe there's more opportunity for farming techniques to help support kelp restoration. But again, we're sort of in R&D at that point, really. I'll leave it to others to chip in.
I can add a couple of comments. Kelp grows from San Diego to Humboldt. And California is one of the most famous places in the world for kelp to grow naturally. It's some of the most glorious kelp forests on the planet, but things things trade. And so in Southern California, you've got protection, but you have less nutrients in the long run. Central California, you've got a little less protection, more open coast, but potentially more nutrient supply. And in Northern California, off the Mendocino coast, you've got the best nutrients in the entire state of California. But good luck keeping a farm attached, you know, off of Cape Mendocino with the most wicked winds on the planet. So there are trade-offs and compromises. And so it sets up for certain types of farms, different places to go. And luckily for us, we've got a lot of great kelp forest ecologists in California that understand well the geography of how kelp physiology changes, and we can use that to our advantage when designing farms.
And engineering is something that you do, Javier, right? You figure out every location gives you different engineering challenges, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, as part of the site selection process, a cultivation system could only withstand what it's been designed to. So if you have to be able to forecast what are the worst conditions possible in a, I don't know, in 100-year scenario to be on the safe side. So there's a lot of engineering to do when we talk about offshore aquaculture mainly, or coastal if it is open to I don't know, swells and big winds.
Yeah, and whereas Leslie's taken the opportunity to work with San Diego and is in the Bay, Humboldt State University have taken the step to have Humboldt Bay. It's a bit more protected, but it does have big tides. So I guess we're saying everywhere is different.
Yeah, especially differences throughout. And I imagine that also applies to the species you select as well. Your infrastructure will change, but also the species that you're able to grow and what will grow best. There was also a question about how do you select your species? And are there better species when you're thinking about kind of climate changing, pH changes, temperature changes, moving into the future?
I can chime in on that one. Sunken Seaweed started just basically by assessing kind of what species we could potentially grow, like what species were native and found like within kind of a 20-mile radius of this area. And we attempted over the course of a year to culture them in a lab setting at SDSU and then deploy them here on this farm. And then just monitor them and see how well they did, but in most cases, see how poorly they did. And so that kind of narrowed things down. Out of all the native species that we grew, we put giant kelp on the farm, and we put Laminaria farlowii on the farm, the golden kombu. But ulva prevailed above all else. It was resistant to fouling, to extreme weather conditions. And different salinities. And so it did the best. So that kind of made the decision for us. But definitely
the species or what product are you looking for? I mean, if you are going for the food market, or if you are going for a feed market, for example, I mean, that would tell you completely different species to which you can choose. I mean, one would not be good to the other, most likely. There are species that grow very big and very fast, but have low value. And there are others that take a lot of time or are difficult to grow with high value. So all those things you have to put into your balance, and then regarding the product that you want to offer the market, make the decision on what species are you going to try to grow, of course, taking into consideration all the ecological and biological aspects of it and the opportunity that you have within the neighbor that you are planning to. So there's a lot to consider regarding seaweed, but I would say that the most importantly, if you see it as a business, it's about products and markets. What are you aiming for? That would give you what is the main bunch of seaweed that you should select from.
And I would like to add to that, Javier. Don't farm it if you can't sell it. it's really, there's a lot of easy species to do right now, and you might not be able to move it. Why invest so much money into a farm to grow feed if it turns out that your product isn't going to work into the feeds the way that farmers who will use that feed want to purchase it, right? It's too costly, it's too salty, whatever. So you must have you must have your market and your demand outlined before. Otherwise, you're going to be doing, you know, a lot of work later trying to get rid of 20,000 pounds of kelp because you have to go harvest your lines, and you know, it's cheaper over here or cheaper over there. So I agree. You think hard about your products, but you also think hard about what you're going to do with it. Most importantly for you, just to make your bottom line.
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks so much, everybody. We are quickly running out of time. This is also really helpful feedback. We did have some questions we weren't able to get to. A lot of them about young people excited about this field and wanting to asking kind of what's the best way to get your foot in the door, or if you guys are hiring. So if anybody has any quick less than a minute responses to that, I think it'd be appreciated. All right. Well, I'm gonna just wrap this up quickly. If you have any questions that weren't answered today, you can find contacts for each of our panelists on the social media pages of the California Seaweed Festival. And I'd just like to end by thanking both Simona and Janet for getting this all going. Thanking all of our panelists for sharing their work and expertise in seaweed farming. Remember, a reminder to everybody that we are screening videos at noon, Monday through Friday, and 3 p.m. on Saturday this week. If you missed out on our video screening at noon today, we invite you to join us in restreaming the archive session on the California Seaweed Festival YouTube channel right here, right after this session. I'd like to also thank our live stream producer, Elizabeth Burns, with technical assistance from Tim Aguirre and Steve Dugan. Julia Marsh of Sway provided our graphical design. And today's events were sponsored by California Sea Grant, CSUN, Yukon, the Cultured Abalone Farm, Sway, Sunken Seaweeds, and Nature Spirit Herbs. Join us again tomorrow for Seaweed as Food session. We are screening at 12 noon with our live panel beginning again at 4 p.m. And then followed by a cook along with Dr. Janine Pfeiffer at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Remember to register through our website to join the Seaweed Speakeasy event, social and networking event on Friday, right after that panel session on Friday. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in, and thanks again to our panelists. Have a good one.